Okay, I think we can start. Aloha, everybody. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz, and I'm joining you here from beautiful Honolulu, Hawaii. And thank you very much for participating today. We have 186 people that signed up, and so far we have 50 in the room, so we're growing. And people who signed up are probably half of them are from here from Hawaii, and the other half is from everywhere else in the world. I thank you also for participating at reopening tourism. I'm sorry, at rebuilding.travel. That's our forum. For those of you that are not member of our forum, you should join us at rebuilding.travel. We're only 3 weeks old. We grew to almost 1,000 members, and we have members now in 113 countries, including sitting ministers of tourism, heads of tourism board, aviation experts, cruise experts. We have a weekly webinar, and if you're located in Hawaii, it's ideal because one is at 9 in the morning, the other one at 9 at night, and we get the entire world together discussing rebuilding.travel. We just announced a partnership, or we're going to announce a partnership with the World Travel and Tourism Council, and are working on a number of other partnerships. Also, we already, of course, have established a partnership with the African Tourism Board and several others. The other co-sponsor for our event is Hawaii News Online, what is part of the eTurbo News Group. If you don't read Hawaii News Online, just go to hawaiinews.online and you can subscribe, and we would love to have you on board. Again, mahalo for participating. I'd like to give the microphone to Tom. He is with the Hawaii Tourism Wholesale Association. That's our host today. And this is actually the monthly meeting for the organization. Welcome.
Aloha, everybody. Thank you, Jürgen, for the introduction and for putting this wonderful group of people together. I've been asked to give you a little bit of a background on what the Hawaii Tourism Wholesalers Association is. We're a small organization of business people here in the state of Hawaii. Started in about 12 years ago, I think it was 2008. We used to meet monthly and have speakers and at various locations on the island of Oahu. Things have changed a little bit. We've gone into this format where we're now using Zoom. Thanks to Jürgen and his great skills, he's opened up our organization to many, many other people. So we're anxious for you to learn more about us. We will be looking for members who are interested in joining the group at some point. We do meet monthly, like I said, and Jürgen said. Mostly businesses, business-oriented. We've been around tourism and mostly wholesalers, but we're starting to spread out and become a little bit more diversified. So if you've got a business in the state of Hawaii that's involved in travel, tourism, manufacturing, distribution, anything like that, retail, we welcome you into this group and to become a part of it. And we will get you the information you need if you're interested after this meeting at some point. I think that's all I have. So it's all yours again, Jürgen, if you want to introduce our speaker.
Sure. Yeah, thank you very much, Tom. Just some housekeeping information. I'm sure most of you have been on Zoom meetings. We all live on Zoom. A few months ago, I didn't even know Zoom exists. So we're all new to it, but we're getting used to it. There is a very good way to keep this very interactive. And there are two formats in Zoom. One is webinar, where you really cannot see each other and you only can see the speakers. But I really like, if it's less than 1,000 people, to go with the meeting, and so we can see each other and make it interactive. So at the end, when Frank, depending on what Frank has to say and to present, we'd love to keep this interactive and open up the floor for questions. The easiest way to do is just raise your hand. There's a blue button on the right side of your screen when you click on participants, and if you click on this little blue hand, I can see it here, and Dimitri, who's helping us out here from Honolulu, will see it, and we can give you the floor. Also, I'd like to again welcome everyone who, we have quite a few more now since I talked, from rebuilding.travel. This is part of the rebuilding.travel forum, and thanks for joining. Specifically, I see a few people who have been on all 3 meetings, and we started last night Hawaii time at 10 p.m., went for 5 hours on the first meeting till 3 a.m., and then the next meeting started 9 a.m. this morning, and would last for 2 hours, and we still have, I see some familiar names here. Thank you so much for being such a loyal guest here, and I'm sure you understand how important this is to talk about the future in tourism. And there I'd like to introduce Frank Haas. Frank is an old friend of mine, very well established in Hawaii, has been the head of marketing for the Hawaii Tourism Association many years ago. That's when I first met you. And you're in a consulting business, has been the dean of the culinary school, I think at Kaua'i College, and is probably one of the best experts when it comes to travel and tourism in Hawaii. Welcome, Frank.
Thank you, Jürgen. If you will allow screen sharing, I will.
Yes, let me do that. Okay, there you go. You should be able to share your screen now, Frank.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. I'm flattered to be invited to speak today, and I was asked to speak on the future of tourism for Hawaii. But I think I want to define that a little more precisely. I want to talk about the future that we create for Hawaii. I think in the past, the future that we looked at was often the future that somebody else had in store for us. And I think now is the time when we talk about over-tourism and we talk about the impacts of tourism that we start seriously thinking about how we can manage our own destiny. So I'm happy to be here virtually. I want to talk about reinventing or renewing tourism, not its future. I want to rethink it. And I think this is the time to do that, since COVID-19 has sort of made us pause as we think about how to come back. So that's the whole idea today. I want to talk more specifically about material that's in 2 different papers that were written. Today's presentation is going to be fairly short, but there's much more in these 2 papers that were written, one in the end of 2019 and the other just very recently. The first one is called Charting a New Course for Hawaii Tourism. And that talks about the role of governance, how to create a structure for tourism management that makes sense, that balances the needs of the visitor industry, but more importantly, the means of the community. And the principle there is that tourism really needs to benefit the place. If tourism is not beneficial, then what are we doing with it? So that's there's a lot of information in that first paper about how to manage tourism, how to structure it, how it should be funded, and where those funds should go. The second paper was written after the COVID crisis. It's called Hawaii Rise from the Ashes of COVID-19.
Oh my God.
Smart destination. And I'll talk more about what a smart destination is. But basically, it talks about technology and technology applications to be smarter about how we manage the place. Both of those papers are posted on the University of Hawaii Research Economic Research Office, known as UHERO. There's the URL, uhero.hawaii.edu. In addition to those papers, there's a ton of other really good stuff. For those of you not in Hawaii, we have a wealth of resources that can help you with your own tourism questions and issues. Some of them are on the uhero.hawaii.edu website. Some of them are on the Hawaii Tourism Authority website. Tons and tons of research there. The first paper was written in collaboration with Paul Brubaker and Jim Mack, who are both economists. And the second paper was written with me and Jim Mack. So I want to talk today about destination management. And what that means is actually proactively managing the destination. It's fairly simple. And I don't think we've always done that. I think in the past we have, in fact, not managed tourism. We have managed pieces of tourism, different parts and parcel of the industry have managed different elements. In Hawaii, and I'm sure in other places around the world, management is fractured. You have government, you have industry, you have community groups, you have NGOs, you have different levels of government. In Hawaii, we have counties and the state. And that means that there has been no real effective coordinated management of the destination, and that needs to change. A subset of destination management, though, is smart tourism, and that's more specifically about using technology and using smart practices to more effectively manage tourism. That's becoming more and more important as this phenomenon of over-tourism has occurred over the last 10 years or so. Obviously, it's not an issue now with COVID-19, but obviously this is the time as we recover to start putting into place some of those smart tourism applications so that as we recover smartly, and we recover in a way that is sustainable, not leading to the issues that we and others had with over-tourism in the past. I think we were mismanaged, or perhaps even unmanaged in the past in Hawaii. We grew recklessly, we grew very, very quickly, and we were starting to see the stresses and we were seeing the stresses and strains on the community as we approached 10.4 million visitors in 2019. So that's what I want to talk about today. The idea of destination management isn't new. We've always done it in some manner. I mean, just as a simple example, we close our parks at night because that's the smart thing to do. But it's just that we haven't done a coordinated job. In fact, what I have here on the slide is we've done a lousy job at it. We've only taken baby steps at managing tourism, at least in Hawaii. And those steps have been ad hoc. That is that we've only taken those steps when things got out of hand, when we get to have a crisis on our hands and somebody says we have to do something about it. I would like to propose that now is the time to think ahead, to analyze where those issues are going to arise along with tourism coming back, and plan now and put procedures and protocols into place so that they don't become the issue of over-tourism. Some examples of things we've done in the past here in Hawaii. I'm going to talk more about Hanauma Bay, which is the spectacular snorkeling spot. But other examples, closed circuit television in our primary resort area, Waikiki. We had growing numbers of criminal activity in Waikiki, and it went on for some time, and finally when it got to a breaking point, we've installed the closed circuit television to assist the police in securing the resort area. That was partially funded by the Tourism Authority, but that's an example of an issue for society, but an issue that also affects tourism, where we need to come together and find a solution, very often involving technology and creative solutions. We now have an access fee in some sites. We have an access fee at Diamond Head Trail. Diamond Head is a beautiful view from the top of a pretty rugged trail. It's not rugged in terms of length, but it's pretty steep. People go up there in high heels. People go up there in rubber slippers. So we need to manage the access to that site. The step that I believe it's the state took to managing that was to put an access fee there, but it's a very low access fee, and I'll talk about access fees more in a bit. But we now have access fees at Diamond Head, at a couple of other lookouts, but they're very low. And if we're serious about restricting access or managing traffic, then we have to look at what those access fees actually are. A newer and probably better example of destination management is a park on the island of Kaua'i called Haina. It's the most comprehensive example that we have currently, and I'll talk more about that. But the good news about Haina was the basis of that destination management plan. That management plan was involvement by the community. So it was from the ground up, it was from the community up. And so far, it's a fairly new plan, but so far it seems to be working. Another example of our very reluctant foray into destination management is vacation rentals. For years and years and years, we had arguments about how to restrict or manage vacation rentals. And in the meantime, vacation rentals kept popping up and they were illegal. So here's a case where we knew we had a situation that needed to be managed. We just couldn't get the will of the community and the powers that be to actually implement a management program. So let me talk a little bit more about some of those examples I raised. One is Hanauma Bay. Hanauma Bay is a beautiful snorkeling area on the island of Oahu. And in 1990, it had 2.8 million visitors going to that site. That is 7,500 visitors a day. Anytime you put 7,500 people in a small place, I think that's the definition of over-tourism. It was a natural disaster. There were no essential rules. There was no orientation when you went into the bay. You could do whatever you want, basically. The visitors were bringing frozen peas to the bay because they heard that was a great thing to feed to the fish. If you can imagine, frozen peas are not a good diet for tropical fish. Because there was no educational element to this, the visitors were trampling on coral, creating damage. So in 1990, a management plan was put into place, and it began with limited parking. There were only 300 slots for parking. So once the parking lot was filled, visitors were turned away. It was closed on Tuesdays to give the bay a break, to allow it to refresh itself and to clean it up. Later, there were entrance fees and parking fees. And now you're required to walk through a video orientation and education session before you can go down to the bay. So now, as opposed to 2.8 million visitors at the bay in 1990, there are about 1.6 million visitors, about 40% less. That's still a lot of visitors, but it's better than it was, and it was a response to a crisis. And the thing that struck me is as tourism in Hawaii kept growing and growing and growing, because of the restrictions in place at Hanauma Bay, that site stabilized at 1.6 million visitors. That's what can happen with effective tourism management. I'd say that there's still work to be done at Hanauma Bay, but that's an example of a response to a problem. Another one that I mentioned is Hyena State Park on Kaua'i. That was also out of control tourism. We had hundreds of thousands of visitors going to this very bucolic rural park. Everybody had heard about it because of social media. And because of the popularity of it, there was no room in the parking lot. There was no room by the side of the road. And cars were parked illegally for miles before you got to the state park. And as you can imagine, with hundreds and thousands of visitors, there was a lot of litter and trash and denigration of the site. So a few years ago, and it took a few years, there was the development of a community-based master plan. The good news here is it started with the community, and it has a cultural advisory committee and a community advisory committee to make sure that whatever happens at Hyena is consistent with what the community wants. There's now limited parking for $5. And I personally think $5 is too low, and I'll tell you why. But that parking is for a limited time. You get a parking permit that says you may park between these hours. So you can't come early and you can't stay late. You're only allowed to be there for a certain number of hours, and that controls the crowds at Hyena Park. Additionally, they've developed a shuttle service so that if you choose the shuttle service, you don't have another car on the road. A very small entrance fee. I don't know why they chose $1, but they charge $1 to go in. And only 900 visitors are allowed during the peak, as opposed to the thousands that were there before. Because of the problem with people parking illegally to get into the park, parking fines went from $30 to $200. So smart tourism is one way to respond to this by putting technology into play. Things like the parking hours at Hyena are the result of creating an algorithm of how many cars can go there and when can they arrive, when must they leave, so that you control the traffic there. So that's an application of smart technology. And smart technology really came from the movement towards smart cities. And you may be aware of smart city technology in places like London or New York, but the cities started using technology well before tourism because they were overwhelmed with population and with congestion. If you think about a smart city versus a not smart city, think about Asia. Just to use a dramatic example, Singapore is a city that's regulated, that's smart, that uses technology. And even though it's a very densely populated city, it is fairly well structured, as opposed to some of the other cities in Asia, which have not implemented smart technology. And if you've been to some of those cities, and I won't mention any of them, you'd see a lot of traffic congestion, crime, and issues that aren't prevalent in places like Singapore. So the question for tourism is how can we take these technologies that cities have used and apply them to tourism? How have cities dealt with crime, and how can we apply those technologies to tourism crime? How have cities dealt with resource management, and how can we apply that to tourism? Just a couple of examples before I dive deeper into this, but in 2006, there was a study in Hawaii on the resource implications of tourism. What we found is that visitors use a whole lot more water, trash, electricity, and other resources. So what can we do to minimize that? In Hawaii, one of the things that we're close to implementing is air conditioning that's driven by cold steam. If we look at the amount of water that hotels use, a lot of the hotels, water usage comes from landscaping. So can we do xeriscaping? Can we change the landscaping so it uses less water? Can we redesign lobby areas so there are less places for criminals to hide? I don't know if Peter Tarlow is in this call, but Peter's written several books, and I taught a course on destination safety and security. And there are a lot of ideas in there that come from smart cities that we can apply to tourism. So smart tourism is basically where big destination technology and visitor technology meet. On the destination side, we have access to big data, robotics, data analytics, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, biometrics, all kinds of stuff. To make it work, the visitor has to have access to those technologies through smartphones, social media, wearable technology like your watch. 5G is coming, universal coverage of the internet, which is more and more common. So smart tourism is becoming more possible as we see technology become more ubiquitous. Actually, technology has created some of the problems that we're dealing with in tourism. Certainly one of the issues that we have is social media. The visitor has been empowered. Visitors used to stay in a resort area because that's where they had information about the place. But with social media and with smartphones, they can find all kinds of places. And some of those places are culturally sensitive or private property or dangerous. And that has driven some of the issues around over-tourism where visitors have gone into places where they frankly shouldn't be. It's the age of the selfie. So people go out into these places and they want to take a picture of themselves being risky or being in a place that their friends have not been. But social media can also be part of the solution. Social media can guide visitors, can educate visitors, can inform visitors, can restrict places, and we can use social media and apps to charge fees. Part of the issue of over-tourism is that it has affected our residents. And as I said, what's the point of tourism if it isn't good for us, the people that live here? And there's a survey that's done by the Hawaii Tourism Authority, and a couple of interesting points here. One is the measurement of tourism has more benefits than problems. And you want to see that to be a very high number. And in 2010, 80% of the people in Hawaii said tourism has more benefits than problems. But that has declined all through the years through 2020. Another one that, another element that's measured is this island is run for tourists, not for me. And you want that number to be very low. But that number has been increasing steadily from 50% in 2010 to 66% in 2018, the last year it was measured. So we need to recognize that mismanagement of tourism is affecting our residents, and we need to deal with that. We can use big data to improve visitor yield. Big data is one of the technologies that's part of smart tourism. So how do you do that? Well, the hotels have figured that out. This is a chart that shows what's happened in the destination. The blue line is real, that is inflation adjusted for 2019 dollars per person per day spending for visitors in Hawaii. And that, as you can see, is a very flat line. We're not getting any additional value in terms of visitor spending for our visitors. All the while during that time, the number of visitors has increased. So we're getting more and more and more visitors for about the same economic benefit. The red line, however, shows the revenue per available room for hotels, inflation adjusted. So these are real dollars. And that line is going up consistently. So what's the difference? The hotels have been using big data, and they understand that big data is an asset, and the trick to the asset is finding the value. And what they were able to do is use management tools to selectively market and to attract those kinds of guests that were willing to pay higher rates, and to manage their inventory to do that. There are obviously some other things that have driven RevPAR. One is that Hawaii was just very, very popular during that period. But the point here is that the hotels have figured out how to use technology to improve yield. Can the destinations do the same? Can we use the same sorts of things to either reduce the pain of over-tourism or to increase the benefit of tourism? So one of the things we can use smart tourism for is to manage congested sites by charging access fees, by using smartphones to charge for those fees, to restrict access to different places, to put some sites completely off limits that are not appropriate for tourism, and to use smart technology for education and safety. We had 52 drownings in 2019, visitor drownings. So we need to find ways of getting information to visitors as they approach a beach, to tell them about the conditions on the beach and how to visit that beach safely. There are technology applications like that. One is called near field communications, where as you approach the beach, it will sense your smartphone's presence and provide you safety information. So things like that are one way to deal with those issues. Here's just a made up example. Say we wanted to use smart tourism to manage access to a site. We may use a smart app on your phone or at the hotel where you must make a reservation to go to that place. Maybe it's Hanauma Bay, maybe it's somewhere else. But you get on your phone and say, I want to visit a site. And there'll be a drop-down menu. Do you want to visit Hanauma Bay, or you want to Pali, or whatever? And you pick that site. And then you pick a date and a time when you want to go. And the app would show you availability. And the price might be based on demand. If it's a very popular time, it might be one price. If it's a less demand time, it might be another. So we could spread out the experience. If the site was sold out, it might suggest an alternate possibility. And then on that same app, you could reserve it. You just tell the number of visitors that are coming. And here again, you could add things on. And I have this for Dale, perhaps suggested add on to transportation. You know, are you going to drive yourself, or would you like Charlie's Taxis to take you there? And then you check out and you go pay for it through PayPal or something else. And there'd be a one-time QR code that would be created, and you would have to scan that for access. You'd still need a gate or someone at the site to make sure that you're not that you're legitimate. But it's a lot less management in terms of personnel than we currently have at places like Hanauma Bay, where we probably have 4 or 5 people dealing with the access to that site. Another issue that we have in Hawaii is congestion on the roads, and one certainly big area is the north shore of this island, Oahu. Because of social media, it seems like everybody in the world wants to go see the turtles at a particular beach up there. And because of that, there are horrendous traffic jams. So how could we manage that? Now, I meant to disclose this up front. I'm not a techie. So here are some ideas that I see that may be possible. One way is to charge rental cars, not residents, because the residents have to drive on that road, but charge visitors who are renting cars tolls on those congested roads. And you can do that in several ways. One is a transponder. Easy Pass in the United States is a transponder that's in your car. And as you go through checkpoints, it charges you a fee for going through those checkpoints. So we could require rental cars in Hawaii to have these transponders, not residents, but rental cars, so that as in your rental agreement, it says if you're driving on the north shore of Oahu, you're going to be assessed $25. Another model is in California. They have something called the toll roads, which scans license plates. And here again, we could register the license plates of rental cars. And as you drove through this checkpoint, it would scan your license plate and add a charge to your rental bill. Just so I'm not Hawaii-centric here, some other examples of smart tourism. City cards, very prevalent in Europe. Copenhagen probably has a very, very good example of this. The card allows you admission to selected attractions, and I think their card has 80 different attractions in it. So if you get this card, you're going to be prompted to look at a lot of different sites that you may not have considered, and that spreads out the traffic. You know, here in Hawaii, we have over tourism in some sites, and we have under tourism in others. I did a business plan for the Mission Houses Museum, and they're very lightly visited. And if there's a card that includes that or points the visitor to that, we could get visitors experiencing more of the history of Hawaii that they may not have ever been aware of. The Copenhagen card is digitized, so it customizes recommendations based upon your profile, and it includes all transportation. Palma has a green fee that they charge. It's like a tax, and it's raised 120 million euros a year for environment, cultural heritage, workforce training, and the rate goes up in high season. You can use augmented reality to improve the visitor experience and to charge for things that you might not have charged for. On the left is the Coliseum. If you had an augmented reality application there, you could actually use your phone to see what the Coliseum looked like before it was a ruin. On the right is something in Hawaii called a cemetery theater. It's run by the Mission Houses, and they bring historical personages to life, and they charge $25 to visit a cemetery. Now, why would you visit a cemetery, and why would you pay $25 to do that? Well, you would if there was a reason to better understand what the site is. GPS applications can tell you when a site is busy. Google already does that. If you want to go to Diamond Head Trail, the bars on the right of the slide show you when it's really busy. But you can suggest alternatives. Other quick examples, in Nice in France, they have an app called Create Your Own Digital Itinerary. In Lyon, in France, there's a customer relationship management tool that's based on 2 million contacts that they have, and it provides relevant recommendations based upon your profile. In Aix-en-Provence, there are sensors in the pedestrian streets, pedestrian lanes to improve pedestrian traffic. There are smart trash bins that signal somebody by Wi-Fi when the bins are full to make sure that they get collected on time. A quick example of, these are not new ideas, but the tools are new. Back in 1995, I was involved in a project that was an early example of big data. We were trying to get higher spending visitors to Hawaii, and we became partners with American Express. And the reason we became partners with American Express is it was a premium card, and they had data on their members, on their card members. What we did is work with them to specifically target higher spending visitors. And we knew who they were because American Express could give us data on cardholders with higher than average monthly charges. So if a monthly charge average for their average card member was $2,000, they gave us a list of people who were charging $2,750 or $3,000 a month. And part of that was that there was significant spending on travel. We used that list for direct mail, and then we supported the direct mail with long form print advertising in the markets that we targeted. And here, very importantly, we were able to track through card usage the number of card members that actually traveled to Hawaii. So this was part of a 28-page insert talking about the culture of Hawaii. Long copy because people who are high spenders are interested in information about the place. And we did have deals, and you can see these are not necessarily cheap deals. People are concerned about underpricing, but for the right targets, it's not an issue. So 25 years later, big data is huge. Data analytics has made this much more easy to implement. We have the potential to research the connections between behavior and spending based upon the data that we collect from our visitors. Who are the big spenders? We can micro-target to provide more relevant message to the higher spenders. We're approaching this idea of the customer of one, where we can tailor a message to Jürgen's specific travel patterns and behaviors. So what do we need to do the next steps? We need a plan. Believe it or not, Hawaii does not have a statewide tourism plan. Hawaii Tourism Authority has a plan, Department of Natural Resources has a plan, the counties have plans, but there's no big, wide, community-based, cross-jurisdictional plan that works at the state, county, federal, local level that's based on the community values. It needs to be long-term and it needs to be statewide. If you're looking for a good template for this, Rotterdam in the Netherlands has a wonderful plan that talks about really making tourism work for the place. And in terms of site management and smart tourism, we need a site assessment. At the last session of the legislature, there was a resolution that was introduced to assess all the different points in Hawaii where visitors went, to find out those where they can accommodate visitors and those that are overstressed. And so that we could create a management plan where it was needed. Unfortunately, COVID came along and that didn't go anywhere. We need technology expertise. We need a chief technology officer at the state or at Hawaii Tourism Authority. And then we need the resources to do it. If we want tourism to be better, if we want tourism to be managed, we actually have to spend some money to implement these programs. And I said I would talk for 20 or 30 minutes, and it's 32 minutes, so I will pause here for questions. And as I said, there's lots more on this subject, not just from what I've talked about in those two papers, but just do some Googling and you'll find all kinds of interesting applications.
Frank, it's always fascinating where you get all this data, and it's a wealth of information. I know the chat group has been quite active, but I would suggest anyone who has a question, just raise your hand, just press the blue button, and here's one. And also please tell us who you are and where you're from. I'm going to unmute, or you have to unmute yourself. I see it, Fanifo. Maybe I pronounce it wrong. Go ahead, Fanifo.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Fanifo, you have to click on unmute so you can talk. Okay, just click on unmute. If you need a little bit of time, I'm probably going to go. Oh, there you go. Okay, go ahead, Fanifo. Where are you from?
I can't hear anything.
We can hear you. Go ahead. I think she has problems. So why don't we go to Chris Honeycutt and then get back to Fanifo a little bit later. Chris, welcome.
Hi, everyone. And thank you for the presentation. I'm based in Japan now, but I was previously in Hawaii. I was the head of digital for Mostly Valenti Pack, and then the head of global digital for Outrigger. I guess my question is, I'm currently working with both Singapore, New Zealand, and Australia, and some of their tourism authorities and groups, and they're really looking at opening up domestic travel before international can start again. And I'm curious if Hawaii has any initiatives going on to look at domestic tourism before the gates can open back up.
That's a very good question. A sort of personal comment. The communication in Hawaii has been opaque, so I'm not sure. I know that there's a feeling that domestic can open earlier. However, we've also been looking at bubble source markets, places like Japan and Australia, which already have low COVID incidences. And I don't think there's been a determination yet. And in fact, it's sort of a moot point because we're still closed down with a 14-day tour. I'm writing another paper on how to logically proceed with opening things up. And we really do need to have a testing protocol and then a follow-up protocol to retest people.
And maybe if I can add to it, listening to the press conference today from Governor Ige, it appears the quarantine requirement for travel from outside the state has been extended to July 31st. And even after that, we're only really looking at the so-called bubble markets. And as Frank said, New Zealand, Australia, Japan, and Korea was mentioned. It looks like the virus is still quite active on the US mainland, where we get most of our traffic from, and that may not be an immediate consideration. I know that other destinations are opening up. For instance, Jamaica is opening up next week, and they established a corona resilient corridor. Then the World Travel and Tourism Council is providing a rubber stamp approval to destinations that they consider safe, what is a risky word to say with coronavirus. So it looks like every jurisdiction has their own plans. For more questions, please raise your hand. We'd be happy to take more questions. I still see Fanifo, but I don't know if she can or he can hear us.
Peter was raising his hand too, Peter Cannon.
Okay, let's go to Peter then. Go ahead, Peter.
First, I want to thank Frank for a great presentation. That's just what I was hoping we'd hear. Sitting here in Hawaii and watching what's going on is just a huge disappointment for me. To watch, it's an embarrassment. We have such a lack of leadership. We have Hawaii Tourist Authority that has no plan, isn't making any. We don't have planning in our state, and it's sad. To watch your presentation on smart tourism and to watch how good we could be if we just get our act together. Thank you for being our speaker. Thank you for getting the juices flowing, Frank, and we really appreciate this presentation today. Thanks.
Well, I've always said it's not me, it's not one person, it's not even a small group. We need to get everybody around the table. Back to the question that, I'm sorry, I lost him here. The previous question. We need to figure out quickly what is an acceptable level of risk and put together, it may not be one thing, but put together a group of protocols that assure people that there's never going to be no risk, but what's a reasonable amount of risk that we can tolerate to bring people in, and how do we deal with those flare-ups that may come even with that small risk. And that's something that we can all talk about and say what's acceptable to the community.
And I think we have been really doing quite well in Hawaii when it comes to the health concern. We're kind of shipwrecking our economy, and the balance, of course. Can you even balance it, Frank, or you can do only one way or or the other?
We can chew gum and walk at the same time, I think.
Okay, that's good to know. And any more questions? There is Fanifor again. Let's try this one more time. Go ahead.
Sorry about earlier, I couldn't hear you.
Where are you from?
I live in Hilo. I'm an assistant professor of tourism at UH Hilo. And I actually have a couple of questions. But thank you so much for this presentation. It was really good. But I'm really struggling with, because I'm doing some research in agritourism on the Big Island, and struggling with HTA, being HTA, and policies, and the management of tourism seems to be more from the county side, the planning department. And I guess my question is there any movement towards restructuring HTA to move away or to increase, give it more management? It seems like, from my understanding, HTA does a lot of marketing, but not so much management. And there's just there's no leadership about management. And how do we address that? Because it seems to be, we have the counties who are coming up with all the policies to manage vacation rentals, agritourism, all these different things. And it's spread out, and there's not really one organization to handle the management of tourism.
You're exactly right. And that's been a frustration of mine for quite some time. And that was the reason we wrote the first paper. And the very first slide that we had, the very first one was charting a new course in Hawaii tourism. And that is all about governance. And the finding is that there is no one place where tourism is being planned. You can talk to DLR, you can talk to DLNR, you can talk to HTA, you can talk to the counties, you can talk to the federal government, but somebody ought to take this high-level, long-term view of what do we want tourism to look like? And then either they have to themselves have the authority to do it, which would create a super agency or a tourism czar, or I don't know what it would be called, or create a coordinating council where you get everybody around the table, the counties, the state, the agencies, the community, and you say, okay, we're going to sit down and collectively say, here's how we want to deal with this issue. One of those two things has to happen. And I think it's worth a discussion about which is a better avenue. But right now, no one's in charge. Yeah. No one is able to make a decision. Well, even Hyena, it took years to put that program together because it was a DLNR issue, but the road there was a county road, I think, and there was environmental issues with the feds. And I mean, it just takes too long to have all these different silos. So we need to find some overarching vision and plan where we can say, this is what we want to have happen in Hilo, and this is what we want in Hyena, based upon the community.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I mean, it seems when it comes to agritourism, because agriculture is administered by the specific counties, it makes more sense to manage at the county level and not at the state level, because every county has very different ordinances regarding agritourism, and that's just one aspect of tourism. So
that's fine, but let's get all 4 counties at that table and talk about how, you know, what's Kaua'i doing that Hawaii Island ought to learn from. And right now, and there's this duplication of effort, and there's some best practices that aren't being spread around the state.
So how can we start, you know, moving the direction towards that, and how can we get towards a state plan for tourism? In my
that is the paper that we wrote, that first paper, and it's not it's only 6 pages. It's a good, I think it's a good read. Give it a read, and I welcome your question. We said in that paper, we don't want to dictate what the solution is, but we want to get everyone around the table and say how should we solve this very long-standing problem.
Thank you. Well, thank you. I'm sorry.
Bruce has his hand up.
Yes, hi there. Thank you, guys. This is great. I really needed to hear some of this. Thank you, Frank, for a great presentation. And I really agree with a lot of what you said. I'm curious to know when you think, and I share your frustration as well, Peter, because I'm on the front lines as a travel agent talking to people every day. Sitting here in the trenches, I wish some of you could see just the calls that I get and the information that people are starving for right now on what to do. But I'd like to know this new paper that you're talking about doing that's going to open up Hawaii in some fashion, that has these layers of checks and balances to open up the state. When will that paper be due, and who's the audience going to be? Are you going to present that to the governor and he's going to go, oh, this was great, and is Josh Green going to do a little whiteboard about it and give us little hints about what we're going to do? Or and how receptive do you think they would be, and what kind of time frame? Because this is, I think, really what we're all itching to get to, is when is something going to happen? I have to now cancel all my July bookings, or all now I have to call them. They're all right here. Here's 5 of them right here. One is a group, one is a wedding. What do I think? You know, people are getting really turned off by all this. So hurry up with the paper. Well, and who's going to be the recipient of your work?
Right now, it's just intended to be an op-ed piece in the paper. So we'll see where it goes. It's early stages. But let me just quote some. I was just looking because on my desk is all the drafts of this thing. But I do remember some lines from it. One is every minute counts, because of people like Bruce that are suffering every day. And what we say is we have to solve this problem, and we have to hustle to come up with a solution. I don't know specifically what the solution is, but we have to hustle to get to that point. We have to, and what we were laying out is some principles. We have to be safe, but we have to be quick, recognizing the damage that's being done. And we have to understand what the community is going to tolerate. So a lot of the discussion in that paper is just around, let's put a framework around this thing, but get people around the table now. And you know what? We've done it before. Governor Cayetano convened an economic recovery task force back in the 90s, and they very quickly came up with a whole new scheme. That's when HTA was created, just because somebody sat everybody down and said, we got a problem, let's fix it.
Yeah, just to follow up, that's good. That's great. I'm looking forward to reading it. Can you answer, is the HTA basically like a quasi-state-run organization? I mean, is it funded by taxpayers and also funded by private enterprise? Is that how it works?
No private enterprise. It is a state agency and is funded by the Transient Accommodations Tax, the TAT. However, the appropriations from that tax come from the legislature. So out of the $600 million in the TAT, about 79 million or so goes to HTA, which is okay if you're talking about a very limited scope. But if you're talking about fixing things like traffic on the North Shore, if you're talking about fixing Hyena State Park, you know, that takes some dollars. And if you're talking about implementing some of those destination management applications we're talking about, that takes some dollars. And other destinations are willing to do it. Singapore spends a lot.
What about HVCB? Do they get tax dollar money and private money?
That's a whole, you know, we had a whole nother session because I always have to explain this to everybody. HTA is a state organization that's funded by the tax. It contracts with HVCB, which is a nonprofit organization. When I was at HTA, the contract with them was $22 million. And their focus is marketing. So they do marketing for, in this case, the United States. There are other contracts for marketing in Taiwan, Korea, other places. But HTA is managing those contracts. And therefore, they ought to be specifying the strategies that get us to these higher spending visitors who are less likely to be damaging the place.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. But we had two, Ramsey, Tom, but before this was Thomas Coyne wanted to say something.
Once again, thanks, Frank, for your wonderful presentation that you did. Much appreciated. I learned a lot. My thoughts on it is it seems like one thing that stimulates the state into action is when the people within the state kind of rise up and protest or get out into the street in a big crowd making a big statement. Now here we have 60 or 70 people that have joined this small little group. And I recognize that not everybody is from the state of Hawaii, but you know, if there was some way we could organize people in large quantities to get out in front of our legislators, they seem to cower in that type of an environment. And they actually listen a little bit to the people. I don't know if there's a way we can do that. We had the restaurant owners get in front of the state capitol. They didn't really accomplish much. It was not that many people. But if we were able to get hundreds of people out there to actually say, wait a second, August 1st doesn't work. You know, let's look at July 15th and, you know, let's get this thing going. We need to have something going. What is your reason behind waiting till August 1st? Why are you doing that? Anyways, that's just a thought I have. I don't even know if it's possible.
I have two responses to that. One is if you set an ambitious goal, an audacious goal, you very often get there. John Kennedy said we're going to get a man to the moon and return him safely in this decade, and by golly, we did it. We need to be safe, but we should, in my opinion, stick a stake in the ground, say we want to be open by July 15th, understanding that if we're not safe, we're not going to do that, but that's the goal. But at least we have a goal at that point. The other comment that I have is that in addition to numbers of people showing up, the people on this task force ought to talk to a housekeeper that's out of work. You know, that's the tragedy here. We have a lot of people who are, we got Bruce not losing business. We got housekeepers out of work. That's the real tragedy that we need to address.
Well, I was thinking of actually, and I hate to say this, but getting the unions involved in some ways, even though they're not necessarily in support of opening up the state right away either. They seem to be focused on their employees, which they should be. But there's a lot of union workers, hotel workers, restaurant workers, and if they were to be part of that crowd that's out in the street saying, hey, we got to get to work. Yeah. We need to get some income coming in. And they get business people there at the same time, you would have thousands of people, thousands. And it would make the news and, you know, maybe get some attention. I don't know. This is an election year.
I just saw a comment from Michael who said the lack of planning has been true in tourism for a long time, and that's absolutely correct. And I think we didn't plan because we didn't have to plan, but now things have changed.
Times are changing. We had Ramsey Tom also patiently waiting for a while. Ramsey, tell us where you're from. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Jürgen. Ramsey Tom with PBR Hawaii and also with the University of, actually HPU, Pacific Islands Leadership Institute. Frank, good to see you. Thanks for the wonderful comments as usual. I wanted to pick up on something Thomas just said as well as your own quote. You know, Michelangelo said, the danger isn't shooting too high and missing, but actually shooting too low and actually hitting our mark. So the concern would be that we shoot too low. And my question to you is, how do you manage the tension between the urgency of getting started, the triage effect, and actually doing what you're suggesting, which I think we all agree, reframing and reshaping what the tourism experience is going to look like in the future, doing both at the same time or finding ways of managing that spectrum of change. In particular, your comments about community-based activities like at the Hyena, whereas a community is actually participating and actually enjoying the benefit, shared benefit, versus the visitor imposing upon the community their desires and demands, as you talked about. I think there are movements, there are communities that have expressed an interest in participating in that way as true partners, rather just as servants to the industry. So I think we'd like to have that conversation, if this is a place to have that conversation. But I think there's some tension between the urgency of getting open soon, which then may lead to another emergency about closing later. So without answering the question, that's kind of what my question would be to you to consider.
You're right on.
Thanks again.
Very brief responses. Let's first talk about the principles. You know, what are we trying to accomplish? When we talk about safe, how safe is safe? What's an acceptable level of risk? When we talk about urgency, how urgent is it? What does the industry need? What is the community concerned about with health? Those are all fungible, that we have to talk about them. But I haven't heard that conversation yet. People are popping up with ideas and suggestions, but in my mind, the best way to have that conversation is to frame it with principles.
Thanks. That's kind of my point. You know, I think oftentimes a canoe leaves the dock too soon, and then we realize we got the wrong navigator and the wrong map. Yeah. And I think we'd like to think about how do we do that before we get to that spot. At the same time, recognizing, to your point, there are a lot of people that are suffering or hurting because of the dependency upon this particular industry. And so it's probably important for us to have that conversation. The question is how, when, and with whom. And so thank you.
Wonderful. We have Fanifo from the Big Island. Go ahead, just unmute yourself. There we go.
I actually wanted to follow up on Ramsey's comment because Ramsey himself has been part of a really long community-based project trying to develop the Carolina network since 2006. And I think it's actually a really, really good model to look at that really focuses on what tourism was like in Hawaii before colonialism and before America, you know, and I think it's actually a really good model. It's a great model. I did my dissertation on it, so I feel very strongly about it. But it was a community-based effort that went over a long period of time, and I think it's really it's a great time right now to actually revisit. And it was funded by HTA portions of that project.
Was that the 2006 project?
It was the Carolina Network initiative.
Yeah.
It started, with Pacifica Foundation. And we're actually trying to write a paper to kind of summarize just the model itself to get the framework out there, the indigenous framework.
Yeah, Frank, I think we may have shared it with you previously. It's a Pacifica Foundation, Hawaii, established a long-range program to establish basically entrepreneurship in local communities and allowing them to participate as true hosts in the visitor industry by invitation, shifting the language from marketing to invitation, and then giving them an opportunity to shape what it is they would like to share with the industry. Not to take over everything, but to give them a part of that, which interesting enough, we found, as you've suggested in some reports, that's what visitors wanted to do, was to communicate and engage with community. So anyway, if we don't include that part of the spectrum, they may get lost again. So
and take a look at the Rotterdam plan that I
well,
mentioned.
thank you.
Yeah, and I think what's great about that model is that it shifts the focus to our host communities. And I think what COVID-19 really highlighted for all of us is how dependent we are and how much we need to really build our own resilience as host communities.
Thanks, Angela.
Good. Thank you, everyone. And I wanted to just let everyone know, I had a few private messages here that we are recording this. It's also live stream on Facebook, by the way. And it's on the Hawaii News online Facebook channel. And we also put it on the LGBT Hawaii channel we manage. And So for everyone who wants to look at the video later, simply go to rebuilding.travel, click on past events or meetings, and you will find it. Are there any more questions, first of all? Well, we've had this meeting now for a little bit more than an hour, and that's wonderful. Didn't expect so much interest here, and thank you so much. And I hope we can continue this conversation also with the Hawaii Tourism Wholesale Organization and with rebuilding.travel. For those of you that have not joined rebuilding.travel, it's free. Just simply go to the website, rebuilding.travel, and we can have this conversation on a global scale with many other stakeholders and learn from each other anywhere in the world. We love for Hawaii to take a more major role. We also have split out rooms where we can actually have an exclusive discussion about Hawaii with others. And it's a global world out there in the travel and tourism industry. We're all coming together now on Zoom these days. From my end, I don't have anything else except thanking everyone, mahalo, and I hope we see you again. Maybe also, I always enjoyed the dinners we have at Murphy's for the Hawaii Wholesale. That's also something hopefully we can do pretty soon. And I wanted to give back to Thomas Coyne to say some final words as a host. And mahalo, everyone. I think, Thomas, you have to unmute yourself. He's talking, but I think he's talking to himself. Let me just see if I can. There you go.
Okay,
there you
can
go.
you hear me now?
Now we can hear you, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Jürgen, again for hosting this meeting. I'm not sure of the next one we have. It's going to be in July. It's the second Wednesday in July. We'll send out a notice to everybody else. Again, Frank, you're incredible. You speak, your talk, and you know, we learned something. I look forward to having follow-ups, and hopefully we can see everybody again at the next Hawaii Tourism Wholesalers Association meeting. Mahalo.
Yeah, and please do participate from rebuilding.travel. We have one meeting every week. Our next meeting will be on Wednesday evening. Wednesday evening at 9 p.m. Hawaii time. And we haven't announced it yet, but we will have a guest actually from Pakistan, a professor, a Turkish professor. She speaks fluent and very good English, and is talking about how the industry is working in that part of the world. And we also have Taleb Rifai, who was the former Secretary General for the UNWTO, the United Nations World Tourism Organization, for 7 years, as a guest and a co-host at that meeting. Again, mahalo everyone, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Jürgen.